Hello, and welcome to the 5th episode of My Art is My Voice podcast. I'm Rebecca Danger.
I'm Tom Ferry.
And how's your week going?
It's went pretty well for the most part, I would say. It's definitely, we're getting ready to leave to go visit our daughter in Arizona. So creativity-wise, artistic-wise, I haven't been able to get a whole lot of time in the studio, but that's okay. I think it's good to have a little bit of break.
Yeah, we have spring break this week, and then we're getting our rental house ready for next week. And so I have gotten stuff done, but there's definitely been a bunch. And it was a couple nights ago, Mr. Danger was editing something and walked away and came back in the next morning, and he's like, I left this and I didn't export it, and I thought it was crappy, and then I watched it again, it was great. So I think it's good to step away and take that break.
Absolutely.
So it's just, reminding yourself of that. So so no more pond or fountain work?
No, I've got the plumbing in.
Okay. Are you thinking about it though?
Yeah, I think I am to that. So we could go back and talk a little bit about the middle stage of projects, which we discussed, I believe, last episode or the episode before. I had been giving more thought to that working on this project because it's a very time-consuming, very large, very physically intensive project with the concrete work. And it's interesting to think about the middle of a project and whether the struggle is because a technique hasn't been mastered or it's not coming out the way I want, or is it a motivational struggle? Yeah.
Do you think it varies project to project?
And I do think it varies project to project, and I think I believe for myself that the technical aspect of it, not achieving what I'm trying to pull out or see, and it seems to me that the moment that I achieve that, the motivational ramps back up.
It's probably a confidence.
Right.
You feel like you're going to fail and fear of failing.
Right. So I think from my past, thinking about my past while I was going through this week was like kind of in this realization that I believe in those middle states of my art that the self-talk becomes critical for me to pay attention to.
Do you think maybe it's a skill thing, but then the self-talk comes in of you are not good enough instead of I think we're going to talk about that. What is it? The 7 stages of creativity. Like, this is great. This is tricky. This is awful. I'm awful. Oh, maybe it's okay. And then this is amazing again.
This is amazing again.
Yeah. I think what I find, and I've been finding it this week, and I took a nap at least once, was I'll get really self-critical, but it's that I'm tired.
Yes.
And I don't allow myself to be tired. I want to be going all the time. And I think the big thing for me this week has been shifting that mindset from that of production and making sure every minute is making sense cost-wise, because I'm so used to selling my work. And I've been working on some things for myself, and all of a sudden there's that luxury of being able to take more time, but I still find myself racing through it and trying to get through. So I think for middles, for me, a lot of the time is like trying to do it as fast as possible too. So then I get tired, and then instead of being like, yeah, you're tired, you're trying to race through this, it becomes that self-talk of, no, you're just not good enough. And
I think for like the middle, a lot of times can become repetitious. We're just doing the same thing over and over to achieve a lot of things that are going to come together at some point, but aren't quite there. So, with my neurodivergence in particular, I get extremely bored.
Well, you came in and I was quilting on that quilt. I think it's about 72 inches wide, and I'm doing 1-inch quilt lines. So, like, if you think about that, holy cow, that's repetition.
Right. So you start counting that out in your head, and pretty soon you're like, "Oh, I'm going to be here all night."
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right. And again, I think the driver for that becomes that self-talk. What are we talking to ourselves? How are we treating ourselves? Are we giving ourselves grace to have that mistake or have the failure? I think all of that becomes important.
Yeah. That's what I've been trying to reframe this week is I really enjoy crafting. So enjoy the moment of it. I think it's very much that, it's overdone and cliche, but be in the now. And it's easy to do that when I'm quilting. Like, I know what I'm doing for the next 10,000 stitches, right? So even today, I normally put on like a show or a movie or something. And I was like, no, I'm going to be quiet. I'm not even going to have music. And I'm just going to sew this. And I think I feel more relaxed at this point because we had kind of a stressful morning, and definitely like there's something to the repetition too, because
Absolutely.
you know what you're doing, and you're not having to come up with the plumbing and how's the concrete going to work and how's the armature going to work.
Right.
But I think it's easy to overlook that.
Yep.
Because you just want it done.
You just want it done right
Yes,
now.
I do.
Or maybe you don't.
Right.
Maybe I'm using it as a distraction too. There's so many aspects of what art is.
Right.
You know, and I've been thinking a lot lately about art and vulnerability. And that's interesting that I've realized, I think most of society views vulnerability as just each of us crying on each other's shoulders and hugging and having compassion and empathy for each other. And that's all wonderful, and I'm all for that. But I've also realized art is always vulnerable, because once somebody else sees it, it's up to be judged.
Yeah.
So it's not just art. Anytime if I share something with you that's very deeply personal, I'm at risk of that being judged.
Right.
But true vulnerability comes when you don't judge, and yet you reciprocate and give me something vulnerable experience of yours, right?
Right.
And I think I'm starting to realize, like, art is very much the same way, in that I don't necessarily think people's judgments on art is they're not judging it vulnerable back.
The human side of it.
Yeah, they're giving critique and this and that, but I think a truly vulnerable piece of art is going to express the artist's perspective in some way, shape, or form.
I've always struggled to disconnect myself as the maker, creator, artist and the work itself, because it is so personal, even in production. I think it's very, if it's made with your hands and it comes from your being and your brain, like, how do you really disconnect with that? So everything's vulnerable with that. And then I think that was what I was thinking about with the quilting and just wanting to get it done, when it's like, actually, that's all I want to be doing is in the studio, and this is an easy way to be in. So I broke it down, and I think this goes hand in hand with the vulnerability to fear. It's the fear that I'm not getting enough done. It's the fear that this is pointless. It's the fear, I think fear is such a huge part of it.
Yeah, I think it stops many artists from even showing their work to the public at all, or even to family.
Or even creating the art.
Right, or even creating the art.
I know for me, I'll get stuck and be like, it's not going to be good enough, and then I won't even try. Right. Whereas I was just reading in a art book that artists are explorers and need to play and need to experiment and have failed experiments in order to be the best artist. So it's that
curiosity.
Right, which is, the opposite of fear. But then if you've had failed projects, it's hard to feel curious. Right. Or it can be. It doesn't have to be. Yeah. It's that overcoming that. Right.
And I think it depends on what your motivation is from. I know in the past, my biggest motivator was somebody telling me I couldn't do something.
That's been big for me in the past too. Not anymore,
and I've been successful that way. And my name is on a patent. The patent was developed because of that. But it's not my choice anymore.
I'm at the point where I'm trying to do things that I feel pulled towards, whereas I think when you're trying to prove somebody that you can do something, you're pushing yourself to do it. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But if you're feeling pulled towards it, then it builds your energy and it increases, whereas much of my work in the past is that push for sales or for books. It definitely. Yeah, I think one of the other things I was thinking would be interesting to talk about is having that success on things. You have a patent, you have your master knife.
Yeah, Master Smith Reed.
Okay, and like I have books published, And, I kind of fell into that. Like I was just doing, and then all of a sudden, I was on a TV show, and
Right.
it got to the point then with that form of success. I feel like maybe I'm rambling, but are you following?
you're right.
Okay. I was at Trader Joe's when Presley was like 18 months old. Maverick wasn't even in, my kids were even in the picture. And I'm in the grocery store outside of the knitting environment, and somebody's like, "Are you Rebecca Danger?" And it like freaked me out.
Right.
And I stopped putting myself out there as much. And it's interesting. I don't know. I think it's the vulnerability, right?
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's
And like
vulnerability.
fear of, I don't know what I was fearing, but it's almost uncomfortable for me. I think we've talked about like, we do the work, so the work is seen instead of us.
Right.
And so I think that was a big like exposure moment.
Right.
And I definitely think it changed the course of what I was doing.
Right.
So
And you put a face on the product.
yeah, in the grocery store,
Right.
not even like in the knitting store, on
Right.
the knitting TV show. That made sense
Right.
because it was within context.
Yeah, no, I think one of the most embarrassing things that happened to me was on my way to a trade show in Atlanta, Georgia for a knife show, and going into Seattle Airport, and TSA had been put into place. So I think we were only 2 or 3 years into TSA. But to be in a TSA security line and have one of the TSA agents know who I was because he collected knives, and then to tell every TSA agent, plus the entire public that's around us, about how I'm this wonderful knife maker,
Right.
when 9/11, it just happened.
Right.
It's like, this was weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, that's that choice we've talked about too. Like, and it's a vulnerability, I think. And, I don't know how much fear plays into it at the same time, but it is very odd because as people, we're, you're a husband and you're a father, and
We're a lot of different things
right.
to a lot of different people.
And we tend to be compartmentalized.
Right.
And like in the studio, this is me as an artist. When I'm in the house, I'm mom. When I'm at the grocery store, I'm just right. Like, so then to be in one of those non-knife making areas and
Right.
then it's weird.
It's weird.
It's uncomfortable. Yeah. So I think some people thrive on that. Maybe. I would.
I don't know.
I don't.
Right, I don't either.
So
I think that's
yeah.
another trap.
Well, there's absolutely that recognition, and
Right. It's wonderful to have the recognition. I'm not complaining about
No,
that,
no.
But there is a time and a place for it.
yeah. And I get it. Like somebody's excited too about knives or knitting or whatever. It just, I don't know. I was just thinking about it, so it came out apparently.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody can understand it until you've been put in that position.
Yeah.
Of like, I don't know. I mean, I'm standing in line to get through security. I've already have anxiety
Right.
going off, right?
Right. Well, I was at the grocery
You're at the
store,
but
so
it's the same way. You have kids. You're just trying to get through the grocery store.
Right,
You're
right.
focused.
well, with Presley, he's on the autism spectrum with lots of other stuff too. And at that point, it was a struggle to get through the grocery store. Like we went to see a behavioral psychologist just to go out in public. And so then to add that extra layer on top of it, I think that's part of it is
Yeah.
it all hits at a certain point.
Yeah,
So.
One thing I realized about my dog that I just lost, Brick, was that he was definitely, I don't know if he was definitely, Jackie has told me that he was, I definitely purchased him for an anxiety dog. I don't think I was in the right headspace to have admitted that at that time, but that's definitely who Brick had become for me. And one thing that I realized about him, the power that he had over humans, was that he was always ready to meet me where I was in life. And I think as humans, we expect people to meet us where we are in life.
Yeah.
And that's not always the case.
I think we talked about the let them. I'm laughing because I totally got Juniper as an anxiety dog, and it turns out I'm her emotional support human
Right.
instead, so it kind of backfired on me,
Right.
but which is why I was chuckling. But I think it's hard to not be judgmental of others because we all, those bubbles we talked about, I think last time, we're all coming at life from whatever life has given us, and there's a lot of things that are out of our control. And so then of course within your bubble you're going to expect things to be a certain way. But I know they did, I think it was SAT testing, I could be wrong, but there was a certain sect of kids that they were testing and saying, what color are bananas? And they would say black, and of course that's, a lot of us think of bananas as yellow, but it turns out in that demographic, they weren't getting fresh bananas, they were getting old bananas. And so in their experience, the bananas were black. That was the color bananas were, because you weren't getting a fresh, ripe yellow one.
So that's like the toilet paper demonstration, where like if I held it up to you at the end and asked you what shape is this, you're going to say circle, but if I turn it the other way, you're going to say rectangle. And that's what we're talking about, is understanding everybody's got a different perspective on the same truth. Which
is why then we expect people to show up in certain ways that are probably unrealistic for them. I do feel like society as a whole, both within art and being kinder to each other in our critiques, or asking if somebody wants to critique, and life as a whole, I think we're so judgmental of everyone else. It just, to me, because, you know, again, I'm early 40s, I feel like the world I grew up in was judgmental, but not where we are now. I feel like everything is a one frame image online, or, you know, even a 2-minute video or a 30-second video, and we as humans are so much deeper and richer than that, but we're judging on these really brief interactions of what humans look like.
Yeah, and I think it's important, just the only thing I can do is protect my own space.
And show up how you want to be.
So one of the bigger rules that I have for myself when it comes to critiquing of my art or judgment on the art is I ask myself, would I take support or suggestions from that person? And honestly, the negativity that comes from some people, I wouldn't take support or a suggestion from them.
I know I've said to you, in our house, we say, if you're an apple farmer, do you really want to take advice from an orange tree farmer? Like, is that... And I think that's such a huge thing within art, because if you are new, you're going to listen to the authorities. But I do think ultimately, at least in my experience, well, this is weird because this is what I've been working on this week, is so much of my making has been for a product, for sales. And all of a sudden it's like, no, it's for you. And I'm like, whoa, like, I don't quite know what to do with that. But that's that constant built-in critiquing of others. Am I good enough to make the sale? Is my art good enough to go in a gallery? And I think it's a line. It's a line you have to overcome.
You have to overcome. You have to realize not everybody's opinion matters.
I think art is so much bigger than the final products, you know, the painting or the quilt or coaster, you know, just from what I'm looking at. And I think life is art. I mean, ultimately, we're all creating
all the time.
Our masterpiece. We're all masterpieces in progress. And our story is, we're writing a story, whether we're aware of it or not.
Yeah, no, I believe that's how, one of the reasons I came out of my darkest place was I realized that I can't change the world, but I can create a world. And I think we all have that capability, and I think if we all put more energy into creating that positive world, this would be an awesome place.
Maybe just a little bit more awareness of how...
awareness of how people are experiencing their feelings and what are their fears and what are their needs. And you have to look inside to get all that. Nobody can tell us.
Which can be hard. I think looking inside, I was having some thoughts about my mom passing this week, and you know, it definitely was like, ooh, do I even want to go there? Because I know there's a lot of emotion there. It can be really hard to look in and see, but you know, I think the art's there to help process it too.
The art's definitely there to process it. I actually thrive in that space. I've definitely embraced that. I'm the shadow worker. I'm the guy who does sit on the dark side and shines a light. I mean, without the darkness, you can't have light. Without light, you can't have dark.
Absolutely. I think that's that middle path too. And that's that, if we could as a whole move society towards, you know, that neutral, like, yes, I expect you to show up like this, but I understand if you're not able to do that.
Right.
Accepting people for who they are, maybe.
Yeah, accepting them for who they are, and not. I think the interesting part for me is I think we've come to a place where when we were kids, you definitely got a lot of judgment in this and that, but I see now that most judgment is more of a projection.
Yes.
Than anything. I've had people project on my art as to what all I need to do, and then that ends up turning into this conversation about how they would have done it, the idea that they had, that they've never executed, right?
That's my favorite part of doing my abstract work, is everybody takes from it what they need,
Right.
which I think even with representational work, it's the same thing. It's just it's different when there's no clear subject matter in it, right? It is.
Yeah, and I don't believe representational work most of the time is as vulnerable.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I think there can be a lot of perfectionism that comes into play with representational work.
And the skills we talk about.
For myself, I have to be a little careful about, or I can spend hours.
Yeah.
The abstract stuff I enjoy, but I don't like the chaos of it, which is super interesting. Like my brain, there's like two parts of me. One needs control and one needs chaos, and they don't always seem to work together. So yeah, like the past 9 months, I would say, I played with abstracts off and on, and just different techniques. And that's where I finally got to the point of it. Like, it wasn't so much about creating these new magical pieces of works, as much as I think I was refining a few techniques that lended themselves more to chaos than controllability.
Yep. The exploration.
So the exploration of that and what can come of it. And I'm years ahead as far as like modeling paste.
Right. You have
I
some
have
techniques.
multiple recipes and multiple techniques to get multiple textures.
Right.
And the only way you do that is just show up and do it.
The exploring.
And it's no expectations. It's no judgment.
Yeah.
And so part of that for me is I've realized also, like, showing stuff to people can end the thought. And that's not always a positive for me.
So tell me more. Explain
Meaning,
that.
I can be super excited about a project. I can be just like over the moon, energy-wise, everything going on it, and I'll be so excited that I'll launch it and show somebody and be like, "Oh, check this out!" And if they don't come back with the same energy, if they don't meet that internal need, whatever I'm trying to acceptance, approval, there's a million things probably tied into that. But I'm realizing now, I think the main one tied into it is it's self-doubt.
That's why I'm laughing.
Right.
It's like that immediate, obviously if they're not as excited as I am, this is crap.
So especially when we're talking about more abstract work or completely moving in a new direction, which in the next month I have another little project idea that it's going to be a totally different direction. I think that's where it becomes more important to hold that stuff close. Only share it with those who you can truly be vulnerable with until that final product or final art piece.
Right.
Because one thing I'm learning is nobody can visualize what I'm doing until it's there. And so, like, I think my best working partner for developing my inner strength to quit doubting myself was my wife. So when I first started painting, all I was like, I needed approval, like, fed to me all the time. Like, I was stepping into this world that I hadn't done in 30 years. And then one day she asked me why her opinion mattered, and I didn't really have an answer for it. So then I just started thinking about it and turning that over. And now we're at a place where she will come in and give a comment, but I won't ask for it. And I think that's really important, is that I'm not asking for it.
Yeah.
And there has been times when she'll say it, and I'll just look at her and go, it's not even close to what you've done. It's just move, go over there.
Move on. Right, Don't look at what I'm doing.
Come back in 2 hours. And then there's other times that she'll come in and she'll be like, oh my God, that's amazing. But it was about me learning to accept the compliments when they were ready to be given, not when I was demanding them.
Yeah.
So again, it's a chaos control thing.
No, I think that's that, because we touched on it, but I think it would be wonderful to come back to everyone on this planet is seeing their version of what's going on through their life experience. And, I would say in my experience, that's the case, but I've read it through other people, and like that's the only way that life makes sense to me. And like Mr. Danger's 6'5", he's a big guy, and I didn't understand for a long time he's very triggering to some people.
Right.
And I think we can't help but look at the world through our own glasses. And yes, you can say there's truths, and that's probably true. And, I hear all other opinions and no one needs to take mine. But how can you not see the world through your own experience?
Right.
Like, what if...
But that's the beauty of what I think we embrace.
Right. Well, that's especially as an artist, but it's that reflection.
Right.
It's that when you're seeing something in someone else. So when you're hearing that compliment from Jackie, like that's what you're looking for. That's what you're looking for in the world. And it's almost like other people are you speaking back to yourself. I frequently, when I read, especially on creativity, I get this feeling like I'm talking to myself. It's like I'm seeing that reflection of what I need in the world in this other person's words. And I think that's one of the beauties of being creative is human connection is, I think, one of the most important things, if not the most important thing. And as a creative, that's literally what you're doing all the time. You're making work to share, to connect.
Our experience.
I went to drop off my quilts at the local gallery, and I brought an extra one because of course I did. And it was so funny because when I showed up, I was like, well, I brought an extra, but I can take it home. And they're like, well, I think the walls are all completely full because everyone seemed to bring extras. And I was thinking about, I think especially as a textile artist, because I jump around and don't love labels, but textile art is definitely a group. I think especially when somebody's like, I want to see your work as a textile artist, because a lot of artists think of it as a lesser art form. It's like, oh my gosh, you want to look at all the stuff I'm doing, right? Like it's that oversharing because you're connecting. You're finally connecting.
With else. Right.
I think that's one of the wonderful things about being creative as a whole, is if it's music that people are connecting with, or theater, or any of what we consider the arts, it's connection.
Yeah, I think it's keep stepping out and showing up until you find your tribe.
Right.
And also be willing to accept the fact that not everybody is in our tribe.
Right.
Nor do they need to be in the tribe.
Right. I think ultimately everyone is going to connect with certain people more than others. We can't really help that. I think, for me, like my overall goal going to looking at other artists' work or going to galleries or seeing this is that I actually want to resonate with whatever they're bringing to the world. Right.
I don't really care about the techniques or the brushstrokes, or I just want to see that voice.
Yeah.
And if I can see that voice, I don't need to judge it.
Right. Well, that's so within knitting. I may have said this before. I probably told you. I love all travel. I haven't traveled in years with the kids. And the last time I went traveling to teach, my spouse became the HOA president because I'd left for just a few minutes. So strangely, I haven't traveled since then. So in traveling, one of my favorite things for knitting specifically, one of my favorite things is, yes, we'd be in a classroom and obviously we're connecting that way. And that's different because I'm leading and, there's students and it's a more, what do I want to say, structured expectations. But the best part was, the first days you'd have these open knit times and you'd sit down and you're in this group of sometimes hundreds of people.
Wow.
And you instantly connect with everyone, and politics don't matter, age doesn't matter,
nothing matters.
Color doesn't matter, religions don't matter, because you have knitting and you're all knitting. And I think it helps with knitting because you're like looking at your work and you don't have to make eye contact, but we just have the most wonderful conversations and you just meet the most interesting people because you have that common connection. Right? I think it's different in our art group because we're not all focused on the same thing, but it's similar. It's that.
Yeah, and I think every art group or craft or whatever, artisans, each group's a little bit different.
Yes.
I would be willing to bet that musicians probably socialize more than most of us.
Well, I know a musician in the room who's not very good at socializing.
But I mean, but you know, the reality of being a musician is you can only play one instrument. So if you want to, I mean, now with electronics, you can add more.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you want to have a jam session, you're not going to go do that by
at
yourself.
A time.
Right.
I mean, unless you got like the harmonica and the stomp pedal. And,
yeah. I mean, but them creating that art, it needs somewhat of that social environment. Whereas I think a painter, an oil painter in particular, or acrylic painting in my studio, I don't really need that participation.
Right. You actually kind of, like, for me, I'm loving working on the quilt by myself away from everyone. Right. It's a different
type of creation. We're not creating, I mean, I actually am envious of music in some way, even though I can't hold a beat if I had to. But I am envious of the fact that it goes into the ether.
Yeah.
Like the song is played and it just goes into the ether. It can be played again.
I think about that frequently.
But it's not on a wall. It has to be heard, right?
Because the instrument also could be considered a piece of art.
Right.
But without the musician interacting with it. I think about that because Mr. Danger plays music constantly, literally constantly. And he stopped playing ukulele last night, guitar, and then like fell asleep on the couch. Because it's like literally all the time. And I think about how wonderful it is for instruments that you can just play and there's no expectation of money. You're not wasting time. Like, you just practice. It's practice, constant practice, and with no expectations. Whereas somehow if I'm drawing or I'm sewing or I'm painting,
this project has to be perfect.
Product. There's and the paper, I'm like, you know, the guitar, you're not breaking. I mean, I guess you're wearing through your strings maybe, but it's not that same feeling of waste that I think I feel, because I also play harp and like I like to sing along when he's playing. And
and it's, I don't know if it's waste, but we still have to buy paint.
Right. Whereas you can buy one instrument and like minimal. I mean, and maybe somebody else has a different opinion.
Yeah, no, we're definitely not minimalizing it. Like I said, I'm envious of this idea and concept of just making the art and letting it go. I don't think a lot of artists can do that. Right.
Well, I think I'm thinking about the reasoning behind the making a lot more and differently. And I love that. You know, our prompt for Black Swan this week is layers. And I was like, what am I going to bring? What am I going to make something? And then I was just sitting and working on that quilt. And I was like, this project, because I started it in, I think, 2021. And it was this whole thing, and it was going to become a pattern. And like, it has so many layers of story in it that I think some projects have more layers of story in them than others, right? And it's interesting because then, you know, somebody looks at it, oh, that's nice. Like, you don't know the 6 years. I mean, there's fabric in there I bought in 2012. Like, it's layered. It's this layered story. And I don't know why I was saying that, but I'm looking at the story of how until recently, within the last 100 years, like, everything in a home would be handmade by somebody. Somebody would be doing and they weren't doing it on machine. They were doing it by hand. And you think about like what that looks like, because then commercial, like, we have only not been hand making for like, and I mean,
and we always have been.
It's just interesting. I love that, like the story behind it more than, and maybe that's that moving from product to just making. I don't even know what I'm doing.
I have no idea what I'm doing either.
That's the reality, isn't it? That's really what we should just say every time is,
we're just doing.
I think a lot of...
I mean, it's just like doing this podcast. I mean, I don't know if it's because of my age or just because I don't do a whole lot of podcast listening. But it's hard for me to like just conceptualize like, what is this for? Like, why am I showing up here? But I do want to, I you know, and going back to labels, like we talk about, are you an artist? Are you a human? Are you this? Are you that? Teacher, whatever. I've realized for myself, like, I spend more time philosophizing in my life that I'm more philosopher than anything. So I think for myself, I've just kind of come to the being okay with my words are important.
Right.
And somebody will resonate with that.
I think that's been one of those like shifts of thought this week too, because I'm doing my YouTube videos too, and like they're gaining way more traction than I was expecting. And to change from, again, it's that here's what I make, look at this, to my words actually being what's interesting. It's wonderful because I talk a lot. I mean, we do weekly coffee, Mr. Danger and I are constantly talking, and you know, it's ironic with the kids, they talk a lot. Wonder where they get it from. But you're right, like ultimately the creativity I think is working through things that come with a lot of words, and I'm really enjoying putting conversations out there. And I think even just a couple years ago wouldn't even have thought, because I don't find myself very interesting. So
and I think it's just realizing you're not alone.
I think it's that human connection.
I mean, definitely when I came out of my darkest period in 2019, and I went through a complete like scraping everything out of my life, anything I could think of. So I went from listening to Metallica and heavy metal, completely scrapped all of my music, and started, and now I'm in this, the world would think it's weird. I love this space I'm in, but it's happy, joyful, empowering music all the time. And I think all of that was important, but what I was going to get at was that during that time period on social networking, I had found new creators. I had found new influencers that made me feel like I mattered.
Yeah.
Made me feel like my thoughts weren't crazy. Made me feel like, oh, I can do this self-healing.
Yeah.
Or you know, whatever that looked like. So I want to give some of that back through this podcast. And that's enough. I don't care about the haters. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and we're both seeing people in our lives connecting, and I think our conversations are good and human and important, and you know, they're important to me. So if they're important to me and you, then obviously somebody else can get something from it too. And it's interesting. It's an interesting transition right now for me, going from more of less of the making, and it's that world we've talked, you know this because you've been next to me at booths for years, but that world at the farmer's market or the art show or whatever, where I put the table in front of me and I put the art on it, and then I'm able to interact with people based on that. Here's what I make, and sales, like that's a really easy interaction for me that makes sense in my brain. And so coming out of that is not a like light switch of now I put videos on the internet and hope people are watching them and watch view hours go up. And
and I think it gives me another place to share my vulnerability, or just be open about this is my thought process, or this is what I'm doing. And I think that's important, is to have that place to release that.
Well, so much of your work, like this one with the wall, which you can speak on more, but the like broken toys in it, your work has so much story behind it. It's fun to have even the dog painting you did, like you've lost your own dog that was really important. And like, I think with any artist, there's where they're at in their life. And I was thinking about a couple of our friends, and I was like, man, I'd love to know what that person does all day, and like what their studio, looks like, and like what I'm doing with my YouTube. And like, actually, I'd really love to hear more of the day-to-day and like just what that looks like, living a creative life.
I think as an artist, at some point, we all realize that it's not about the finished project as much as it's about the journey. And it could be an individual art project, it could be a lifelong event, it could be the past 10 years.
It's interesting, the last time we talked, you were saying something, I don't know, a lot has been said since then, but it was interesting because what I've found specifically in knitting, but I think it goes beyond that, is you have product knitters who are knitting because they love wearing those socks, or they love wearing that handmade hat, or they love wearing a shawl everywhere, versus process knitters. And I'm finding that, I think, within the art community too. And it's interesting. It is almost like the finished thing is secondary.
Right.
Which,
Yeah, I think we're more explorers.
Yeah, I like that
not.
word in that book, exploring and curiosity, because I've always been, I love learning new things. That's why I've always been self-employed, is there's always something new to learn, you know?
Yeah, I got the idea at one time a couple of years ago to make my own felted hats. So I went down to the local shop and got the wool and watched a YouTube video and made 3 or 4 hats and went, okay, cool, now I know how to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to apply in my future, but that's the interesting thing at this particular age of my life, is realizing that some things that I did 25 years ago have become relevant.
I'm starting to see that at where I'm at too.
Especially Jackie will come out and she'll be like, how do you know how to do that? And I'm like, well, I did this at one time.
Right. And so this is, well, it's even interesting in the watercolors I've been doing, because I'm starting to think, I'm getting through these quilts and I'm wanting to do some handwork, more like artsy textile stuff, whatever that means. But I was looking at some of my watercolors and I was like, oh, this is so interesting, because in my mind, I can put in like scraps of fabric in the colors, and then I'm seeing the mark making is like stitches on the top of it. And it was like, oh, this is like, it's almost like sketches for what I want to do with fabric. Right. Which is interesting.
That is interesting.
Because I too was sewing, and then there was that voice that was like, get back into painting. And I did, and then found watercolor. Yeah, it's hard, but then that makes me crazy, right? That makes me feel like I'm...
Well, we're told we're jumping around.
And if you're selling a product, there's not as much room for that, right? Because you're supposed to be...
Yeah, but I don't... The odds of us, each of us developing one product that goes to that big, where we don't have to worry about nothing no more, it just doesn't happen.
There's a handful of people.
Right, and if it does, most of them people end up bored out of their minds with nothing. They don't feel like they have anything to do, but the reality is they could still do stuff.
Right. Well, I think, the classic example, because I think he's local here, that always gets brought up in my world, is like Thomas Kincaid. And I think you go from, you're familiar with him. Yeah, I think everyone is. I think everyone's got like a Thomas Kincaid puzzle or painting, right? Which is wonderful. That's not knocking it. But if I think about it from that perspective, I'm so in love with the making, whatever medium it is. I think at that point you're running a company. You're not making in the same way. And I can see, I think, from where I've had successes or failures over the years, that makes sense. That I'm still very much in the making part, and all the rest of that I'm not so excited. I don't want to make sure I have enough product. I don't want to know what Q1's numbers are. I don't want to worry about the production company in China. Like those, that doesn't interest me in the same way as exploring new mediums.
Right, I agree.
Buying
engaging with all of our senses.
Right, which I think is definitely what it's about for me. Yeah. It's interesting, because I'm sure for some artists that is what they want, right? Is success.
I don't believe there's a right or wrong.
No, I don't either.
But I do believe if you're doing art and you're unhappy, then there's something going on.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I feel like, even within our art group, like we jump to sales. And I understand why. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But there is that, it's like you have to sell to be a real artist. Don't you think that's a concept?
I think that's the perceived reality that most of us have, right? But I don't think that's true success. I think that's success in what we've qualified as success in this society.
Right.
But I don't necessarily believe it's true human success.
Right. And I know if I wasn't in a place where my bills were covered outside of the art, I certainly would be finding something to cover those bills so that I could create. I think it's my purpose more than my
I
anything,
believe that.
right?
Yep.
which
I believe my purpose is to creatively illuminate my universe.
yeah.
Whatever that looks like.
I have a t-shirt and it's a quote from somebody that I can't tell you who it is, but basically it says, I just want to make everything around me beautiful. That'll be my life now. And
Right.
I wear it a lot because it's just a reminder, and it's like, yeah. And then now not making for sales, I'm like, that's a big blank wall in our house. I could paint like flowers all down
all
there.
All of a sudden you can start opening up all
Yeah.
these things. And I think what's interesting about doing art for myself in my own house is the house becomes even more of a personal expression.
Right.
Which is also a more vulnerable place to be.
Right. Right.
So I would highly recommend all artists to make stuff for their house.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's this quilt I'm working on. I'm so excited about using it. I think that's part of why I'm like, I just want to get it done. And because it's been sitting there and it's all my favorite fabrics and it's all my favorite everything. And I'm looking forward to coming into my room and seeing it on my bed. And,
awesome.
But at the same time, I think that's part of my fear this week is somehow in doing that kind of stuff, that's not enough, or that's not good enough, or that's not the right thing to be doing.
We don't judge our worth by anything other than our paychecks.
Yeah.
So we don't have another scale there. Gold stars don't do nothing.
No.
I mean, we've all got those.
Right.
But
right.
I think the trick is figuring out how to give yourself the gold star and cherish it.
I think you're absolutely right, because I can't tell you how many shows I've done where it's like people come by and they're like, this is so wonderful and you're so creative.
Yeah,
and
I would be a billionaire if I lived off compliments.
Right. Me too. Oh, man. And then, they leave and you're like, okay.
Right, what happened? What did I do wrong?
I need some money to keep doing this.
Right.
Yeah. So we do only judge. And we were talking earlier about how so much of our world is driven by money. Mm-hmm. Like the store is set up in this way because money, because they're not making as much doing this. They're making so to then take that preciousness of doing something for yourself.
Right.
It's a challenge for me.
Right. Yeah, so, I think that's the trap for artists to fall into. Is that if that's the only way we judge our worth, and that's where we're seeking our worth, I think then the self-talk becomes even more important.
Right.
Because it becomes difficult to do something for myself if I'm counting pennies of how much it's costing, which I do.
I do too.
Without a doubt. I mean, I'll look at stuff and calculate it out and be like, and then I have to remind myself, I'm like, well, this can, like the water feature is a good example of like, this is a 2 to 3 month project. It's going to cost me X amount of dollars, but to have bought it,
well, there's that.
right? So it's turning my head to say this is the worth I bring, is that I get to have this amazing water feature that nobody else can afford nor make.
Yeah. Right.
And I can be proud of that.
Right. And who knows what that'll turn into?
It may turn into somebody paying a studio visit and saying, hey.
Or the skills to be able to do.
Yeah, the skills to do the next one, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I'm doing something for me. I'm actually increasing my real estate value, I would assume, with the water feature. I mean, who knows? I mean, I think that's the thing I do know. I lie to myself all the time. So if I'm going to tell myself a lie, then I'd rather tell myself I'm increasing the real estate property and just move forward.
I know as a human being I lie to myself all the time. And you were talking earlier about coming out from 2019 and changing what kind of music you listen to and all of that. And I definitely went through a very similar growth period, did a lot of reading, and had to learn, other people, or at least what I took from it was what other people do are because of them and not because of you, which we touched on a little bit earlier. And what goes in matters. We had a friend who had wonderful teenagers, and not that all teenagers aren't wonderful.
They are.
I'm living with one and a 12-year-old, so but her kids were great, and she, would be like, wow, they're engaged and they're, everything. And she'd be like, good stuff in, good stuff out. And it's probably not the case for everyone, but I realize how important, Metallica versus something more positive.
And it's okay for me. Like I can listen to Metallica for 1 or 2 songs, but At the same time, I'm also able to listen to it for 8 hours.
Well, just because it's a maybe darker music that's not as uplifting doesn't mean you don't listen to it.
Exactly. It doesn't mean it's
that
bad.
Awareness.
Right. Yeah, I think it has more to do with like darker music with what's going on in my mind.
Mm-hmm. And where you are.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily think, I mean, I'm the one who's allowing it to influence. I'm the one who's allowing it to reinforce dark thoughts, whatever that may be.
I don't know that you can, if that's what you're putting in though, your brain's going to process it as
absolutely.
normal, regardless. Right.
So it's about how much of that are we intaking and trying to understand for each of us where's our limit of that intake.
Or at least what, like that awareness that if it is a negative in, how is that impacting you?
Exactly.
Because it's going to.
Right. And there is some music, especially in particular, that I've realized since going on my healing journey, that all of a sudden the music says something else to me.
Yes.
That I hadn't thought about.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, that is super interesting now. I did not realize that's what this song was about.
Right. It's words matter. We talk about that because I always like to be like, oh, I'm working on this crap, right? And you're like, don't say crap.
Don't say crap.
And it's not like, I don't see it as a negative. I see it as I work on so many things that it's just what I'm working on this week. It's not precious necessarily. But yeah, I've stopped saying it because...
Well, and that's for me. It wasn't that I would say you to stop saying that because it was precious. It was because it becomes unprecious for me. Right. So I just want to stay in the middle ground of like nothing's bad, nothing's good. It just is.
The center path. Yeah.
But I did hear of an interesting Chinese, I believe it's a Chinese proverb, I might be wrong with that. But it said we should live our lives as the way of the twisted tree. Because the straight tree gets cut down for lumber.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
the twisted tree does not.
Well, and I like that because it's also like you flow with what life brings to you.
We are able to live our lives however we see fit, whereas the straight tree at some point will be cut down, bent, and put to purpose.
We look in our yard, because you're familiar, and we have big trees in it, and it's so interesting, looking at everything going on in the world. And I think of the hustle and bustle of human beings as a whole, like little ants, if you're looking from, above the planet. And I look at these trees and they've got to be old. And I just think about how they just tree. they're doing their thing. And if the tree next to them grows too close in front and blocks their sunlight, they just move to where that, they're just going to tree. I need light to be a tree. And I don't know, I always like that.
Yeah, they're an amazing plant or whatever. I mean, on my property, I've got numerous cedars that are over 300 years old. And to me, that's mind-boggling.
Right. Because they'll be there, after I'm gone, and they were there before I was here. And
but yeah, it is mind-boggling to realize, like, when that tree started. And so, yeah, trees are awesome.
Trees are awesome.
Be more like a tree.
So then should we end this with what I say to my kids and say, let's make like a tree and get out of here?
Yeah, you can do that.
All right, so your website?
TomFerryStudio.com, Tom Ferry Studio on Facebook and Instagram, and go make more magical art.
Yes. RebeccaDanger.com and Rebecca Danger on Facebook and Instagram. And yeah, just make something.
Just go have fun.
And if you have a question for us, my art is my voice podcast at gmail.com. We'd be happy to talk about whatever struggles you find as a human or an artist or, whatever. So
we're all there.
We like to talk. Yep. So number 5, I was told I said 3 last time when it was 4 and no one corrected me. So 5
Self-doubt kicked in. I couldn't remember.
I just went with it. I was fully on with 3. So that's it for this week, and we'll see you next week.